Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. And as my viewers know, that we talk about issues that affect us, that are close to us. We talk about the issues and their impact and implications for people around us, the people we are involved with. And we have talked about many such issues. Today I am very happy to share with you that today I'm feeling remarkably privileged and honored to bring before you a gentleman who is in Maryland and who is doing an incredible work. And if people of this kind don't become inspiration for people like you and I, who always end up complaining about things instead of doing something, that would be really sad. Without wasting any time, and I want to focus on this conversation with Dr. Vinod Prakash ji. He's a resident in Maryland for 11 years. For 11 years and many more, he has been working dedicated life towards an organization that he founded, and it's called India Development and Relief Fund. Dedicated with India name, but also India's neighboring countries as well, and for many, many years. And he will tell you his inspiration, where it all came from. But I want to tell you something more. We have so many WhatsApp groups these days where you see and hear and read people fighting with each other, lamenting, complaining, ye hona chahiye, wo hona chahiye, lekin karne wale bahut kam hote hain. And in addition to everything else, I find that in my brief conversation with Dr. Vinod Prakash ji, I found this is the example. He's an example of a Karma Yogi. That's so very important. And he's only 89 years young. Those of you who know me, I never use age as a marker for young or old. We are all young. It is just a number. 89 is younger than 90, and 90 is younger than 91. 3-month young baby is older than 2-month-old baby, and 4-month baby is older than 3 months old baby, 3 months young baby. So it's just a question of a fraction, but the question is, what are you doing about it? And I will invite Dr. Prakash ji, Vinod Prakash ji, to share the thought process that how did he get inspired by establishing this foundation? And what is the trigger point for him to have started this organization? And I want people to know one more thing, that Dr. Vinod Prakash ji is wearing dark glasses. It's not that because he wants to look a hero or a stylish, but Dr. Vinod Prakash became physically unable to see due to certain mishaps, medical mishaps. And even then, because he has been for the last 11 years, he never slowed down on his work. And, I want to invite him with a great salutation, with a great sense of pride and a great sense of honor. Vinodji, please share with the audience, people who are watching today, what inspired you to do this? And how are you doing it despite with such an amazing, element that you can't see? So how are you running this entire organization, India Development Relief Fund, from here in Maryland, in India and neighboring countries? Your story, please.
Well, many, many thanks for giving me this opportunity. I am a very humble. I feel honored and privileged to be born in India. Bharat is my motherland, and nothing better could have been. Further, I was born in freedom fighters family in Uttar Pradesh in India. So in my own memory, when I was 10 years old, what is called the Quit India movement of 1942, led by Mahatma Gandhi, in that satyagraha, my mother, my all three unmarried sisters, my two brothers, my bhabi, they all offered satyagraha. So I have those kind of inspirations behind me, and they affected me to the extent which is perhaps rare, that at age 16, I disappeared from home. And perhaps the audience may not know. At age 16, this is on January 1, 1949, there was another satyagraha was going on. And that was launched by Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, or RSS. The rationale was RSS was banned by India's Prime Minister Nehruji, and I was going to Shakhas, but I was convinced that we may have some disagreements with Gandhiji's approach, but we were never violence was never promoted and so on. So I was for 2 months in prison. I didn't care for my career. It was the 12th grade board exam. But I would say there was a blessing in disguise that in that year, in 1949, UP board 12th grade examinations were leaked. As a result, the new papers had to be prepared, and examination was postponed by 6 weeks, and that gave me enough time to prepare for the examination, and I was able to retain my usual first class and distinctions in all the subjects. So that is my childhood background. Further, I'm really blessed. I studied at Indian Statistical Institute, Calcutta. There also I was very privileged to work with even with the founder, who was a celebrated professor, P.C. Milanovic, and was at the top there. And I worked in Delhi, what is called perspective planning, the Planning Commission. And believe it or not, I was in great demand in the sense that professors from Australian National University offered me an opportunity. In fact, I did. That was my first international flight, was to Canberra, Australia. Then the University of Cambridge, Britain, UK, they offered me opportunity to do advanced studies. And finally, around the same time, it was the Ford Foundation Fellowship offered me opportunity to work at MIT. So I accepted MIT. I got married in May, on May 16, 1960, and within 3 months, both of us, Sarla and myself, we came to Boston. I studied here for 2 years, returned to India because that was my goal. But man proposes, God disposes. I could stay only for 5 years in Delhi and returned back to USA in 1967. The reason was we were blessed with a son, and he was born with disabilities, multiple disabilities. And in India in 1960s, there were virtually no options for him except we put him in orphanage. But our life changed when we went to Vellore, Christian Medical college come hospital, and they're the head of rehabilitation department. Her book is very famous, Take My Hands, advised us that if we could return back to US, we should. So that son who would have been just an orphan in India, today is leading a respectable life. He is married, he has his family, he's taking care of himself very well. So that is my all family background. But given that background, when I joined World Bank, and I continued to work there for about 15 years or so, my wife, dear wife, reminded me, I thought that was a joke, but she took it seriously कि हिंदुओं में 4 आश्रम होते हैं, ब्रह्मचर्य, गृहस्थ, वानप्रस्थ, and sannyas. So she said, well, you have passed 50. Now what is next? So I had to work a little longer so that I could start drawing pension from World Bank. So I retired from World Bank earliest possible in 1988 and simultaneously established India Development and Relief Fund, or IDRF. So it has completed 33 years and has given me and my family immense joy. Nothing could be more worthy in my whole life than giving back to the society. And I'm not doing any favor at all to anyone. I am selfish. And that selfishness is called Atma Santushti. It is my inner joy. It is my Atma Santushti. I have good night's sleep because I follow Swami Vivekananda's dictum that if you see a needy person, a helpless, a poor who needs something, see a reflection of God in him or her and feel yourself privileged that God is at your door. So help. Manav Seva, Madhav Seva. That I am practicing in my life. So let me stop at this stage.
No, this is a wonderful introduction and a very inspiring instructions message that you have said. And you are, we have a couple of things common, and I take pride in saying that just as you are following Swami Vivekananda's advice, I am also a believer in Swami Vivekananda's advice. And I proudly tell others that Swamiji had given the words, alphabets, letters, telling everybody to arise, awaken, and assert. I added one more A to that, is act. Because all of it, if you don't awaken, if you don't arise, and if you don't assert, and you don't act, then the entire knowledge base becomes infructuous. Because what is the point in having a knowledge if we can't use it, or if we don't use it? So that's what is important, very, very important. And I wanted viewers to pay attention to this fact that here is a man, is showing the whole universe a path. That don't complain, don't talk, do it. And you can do it. If you have the commitment and the desire to do it, then that's where it brings about a fundamental change. And I want to attract everybody to the idrf.org website. And I'm reading the philosophy, the mission. Breaking the cycle of poverty in India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka by empowering marginalized people with skills, services, and infrastructure grounded in sustainable development. And that's what is important to remember. That's the mission of the organization. And the philosophy, I'm again reading it from the website because I don't want to miss out on the importance of the message. We believe a lasting change in impoverished regions can happen only when local people take charge and lead the change. Our method puts power, not charity, in the hands of the poor. We steer our programs to produce benefits for children and women who are powerful players in the fight against poverty. We empower marginalized people with education, livelihood skills, and self governance capabilities so they are equipped to make changes to their lives and their children's. This is a very, very fundamental requirement. And I'm not here, this particular program is not designed, not intended to give publicity. It's not an advertising platform. This is a platform where I want you to know that there are people who are making a difference. And as the saying goes, if you want to make a difference, then you got to do it. As my dear friend from Punjab says, khud mariye na, swarg jaiye na. So, that's a very important lesson to learn, that if you want to do something, you got to do it. And that's the important part. So Dr. Saab, you mentioned about your involvement with RSS. Now, we know in the current political environment, there is a global attack, and we will come back to our discussion on the foundations of the work that you do. But this is a very important thing. Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh is a seva organization. Why is it that globally, all Hindus are somewhere along the line hit below the belt if they are Hindu and if they are affiliated with RSS, as if RSS is an evil organization? And that's what I said, that when I came to this country in 1991, my job was to promote and market India as a business destination. In the process, I learned a lot because I had to address a lot of questions to the inquiring American mind, people, and also the political part of it, that India had no story to tell in 1991. We were socialist countries, we were bankrupt nation, we had complete political mess, and we had no relationship with America at that time. So I'm asking you a very important question here, that you are a person who is a Karma Yogi. I did not know about your RSS affiliation or connection in the past. Why do you think that we Hindus, if there is anything about RSS, are hit hard by the global platform, including Hindus in India?
Well, I would not go into that controversy. It is there. But I will give you an important event that happened in the world or in India. Perhaps present generation may not know that when Mrs. Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, was Prime Minister of India, she imposed emergency. I won't go into the merits or demerits of the emergency of 1975, but during which tens of thousands of RSS workers were put behind the bars. So the Indians who were, I'd say, Bharat-oriented, they got together and started India Relief Fund. India Relief Fund, and then they were going to dismantle the organization because emergency was lifted in 21 months' time or so. But given my own family background, which I narrated earlier, and my experience at the World Bank, which was very important, traveling around the world, seeing poverty, not just India, Nepal, or but whether it is in South Korea at that time, 50 years ago, or Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, so on, and even the Middle East, Africa. So it was perhaps natural for me. I took charge of it. I told the rest of the team, let me take full charge of India Relief Fund. And I continued for a decade. while working at the World Bank. It was so novel, or you can say, I don't know if it was innovative, that when I wanted to raise funds, even within the World Bank, and remember, we are talking on 1970s, there were no email system and so on, so forth. So I could not use interdepartmental mail within the World Bank because I needed approval from the administration. You can't use official facilities for non-official work. So I went to the India's executive director at that time, Mr. M. Narasimham, and he wrote a letter. Everything was done by type thing and all that to the personnel and admin director, and I was allowed to inform all the Indians at the World Bank that it was Morbi Dam collapse in 1979 and we need to raise and support. And it was 1984, Bhopal grass tragedy. I think victims are still, it is intergenerational. So we raised funds. So that kind of embedded I have been. That is, even if you are earning money, you don't have to devote full time for that. Keep your duty always in mind. Further down the road, when I had two sons, and both are now married. When marriage of our older son took place, it was a strange Indian community. I mean, our family and friends in USA, they almost revolted because we did not accept any personal gifts. So the invitation, wedding invitation, had mentioned no personal gifts, but if you wish to donate, please donate to IDRF, and your donation or gift will be used to help the poor and needy through organization A and B and C in India. And the same thing was repeated after 3-4 years when the younger son was married. Not only that, believe it or not, this is now 6 years ago, during the Diwali time, our younger son's grandchildren, that means my grandchildren, Rahul and Tara, they opened their what is called a gullak or kiddie bank. I may not be using the correct word.
Piggy bank, you are talking.
It is in Hindi. And all their savings of $150 they donated to IDRF, which was posted at that time with their permission on the IDRF Facebook. So I have this, I would not say I'm proud because there's nothing, but I feel humbled and humiliated. That is the, humbled that what I had started, which I got from my elder brothers and the rest of my family, is passed on to the third generation, to our grandchildren. Let me stop.
No, you are very savvy because you know exactly when to stop, and even before I say, you stop yourself. That's so wonderful. I wanted to check with you something, people to know, sharing an information, which is very vital, that between 2011 and 19, people must know this. IDRF raised $17.75 million, and they have, till 2020, dispersed grants of $15.07 million. So this is a real actual contribution towards emancipation of women and children with education empowerment. So Dr. Saab, today I'm not going to talk much. I'm going to ask you to talk more. So tell us about the program, various programs that you are doing right now. Of course, coronavirus is right now the real need of the hour. However, there is a very interesting information that I gleaned from the sources that were available. And I'm just talking about 3 days, 4th of May, 5th of May, 6th of May, and 7th of May, all right? And I have the data in front of me. This is not an Indian data. This is a Google data that they publish globally. And the case is like this. Total number of cases as of today is India has 21.5 million cases. Total number of deaths are 234,000 people. United States has 32.6 million cases. Total number of deaths, and people must bear this in mind. Total number of deaths, 580,000. This is not India government data. This is the data from Google. All right, so you are looking at almost 350,000 more deaths in the US. This data is important for one reason, that while there were 818 deaths recorded yesterday, India had recorded almost 4,000. Now, we know that this between the first and the second phase, the outbreak, the first wave and the second wave created a chaos in India. We all know the statistics of per capita availability of hospital facilities, bed facilities, and all that. So despite such a poor or comparatively such lower statistics against India compared to US, the number of deaths and number of cases in the US is so large. But India's story right now is the most scary in the world today. And a person of banking and finance and media, I notice that the chaos in India has been exacerbated by the media as well. So while there is a crisis, I'm not going to deny that crisis, but is this being overplayed? And how is IDRF supporting this fight against COVID in India? So I have asked you two scenarios, two questions in this one. Go ahead.
Well, first, let me say that during the first year of this pandemic, I, along with others, we are very proud of India's performance. And that lasted almost a year from, you can say, February, March last year to February, March this year. But things did change drastically. And during that 1 year, and I'm giving you a somewhat strange thing, that is how come poor people with very high density of population in India, yet the incidence of COVID was much, much lower than in US. And even now, though every life is important, every human being is important.
Right.
When we take on a per capita basis, which as a statistician I'm supposed to do, that is per million or per 10,000, India is still doing far, far better than USA. And this reminds me a small story. Please bear with me. I'm going back to 1960s. In mid-60s, when I was living in Delhi, with my infant baby who was born in Boston and examined at the Boston Children's Hospital. So the Indian pediatrician who was at that hospital returned to Delhi, and I met him, and he said, it is in my words, but it means you and your family would be healthier in Delhi than in Boston. That was a statement made 6 decades ago by a doctor. The rationale is that we drink Indian cow or buffalo's milk, and that cattle is wandering around. There is no cage or anything. So she eats whatever comes in front, digest, and then we drink that milk in India. So the quality of that milk, the antibody system where the typical Indian develops when he uses, drinks that milk is much better or healthier than in US. And the other thing, the same doctor mentioned, the food you eat with haldi, ajwain, this masala, that masala, all sorts of long this, that our sages, rishis, over centuries, they had experienced, and that's how we have a typical vegetarian Indian diet is healthier than typical diet in US. So I think, but that is no defense for the present status of pandemic. I would not be honest to myself that part of the reason was the complacency developed in the society at large and government as well. Because we did exceedingly well and we thought pandemic was over, which I think absolutely wrong, because everyone, especially at the political senior level and the public health, those who are dealing with, they ought to have known the story of what is called Spanish flu 1918 to 1920. During that flu, which was pandemic, there were different waves. First wave, second, third, fourth, and the fifth waves. So unfortunately, our public at large and leaders did not pay adequate attention, and we are paying heavy price. Well, let me stop.
Now, you are right about that.
The second part, what IDRF is doing, first is because you had raised the point of my 11 years of blindness, I would say I am blessed by wonderful people, both Indian Americans and mainstream Americans, who have worked with me tirelessly over the 11 years, and the present team, hats off to Vandana and Niti. They, when I say they are working so hard, they say, well, Bharat is their motherland. They are serving their mother. And I have tears of joy when I work with these young ladies. So the COVID program, let me say, we are working day and night, and we have a variety of programs. We are working with the Indian Doctors Association, which is called GWAPI, Greater Washington Association of Physicians of Indian Origin. We are working with other doctors. We are working with hospitals in India, whether it's Dr. Radgewar Hospital or Vivekananda Yoga University, and many other NGOs in different parts of India. In fact, last year, when people were not talking so much, because we had raised and supported 8 NGOs, non-government organizations, each of them having impeccable track record, because one thing which is the unique strength, that before I lost my eyesight, mostly along with my wife, and thanks to the World Bank privilege of home leave and the official travel, we had traveled all across India, and not just visiting our family and friends. So whether in South, we are in Chennai, so we worked long ago, nobody would have heard. That is Swami Vivekananda Rural Development Society, or in Bangalore, Vivekananda Yoga Anusandhan Sansthan, or in Haryana I'm jumping. This is Arpana Charitable Research Trust, or in Assam, Swami Vivekananda, that is Vivekananda Kendra Kanyakumari, their Northeast project, Bihar, Birsa Seva Prakalp, the UP, I mean, I can go on, but and Gujarat, Maharashtra, if I start naming. But the point is, I had first-hand contact with the organizations at the grassroots level. And so I am confident that though my travel is gone for last 11 years, that our donors' hard-earned money is used most effectively. And during these 11 years, I must say, our board members have very aggressively visited. Whenever they have visited India, they have made sure they are visiting some of the NGOs, so that our donors can remain. Because India is, unfortunately, our motherland is notorious in terms of corruption and all that. But it was that corruption, I ran away from India and settled in the USA. So I wish to assure and reassure every listener of your program that I vouch, pledge, and the Almighty is listening to me, that your donation is more sacrosanct than my personal funds. वो जो है पुण्य है, आप दान देते हैं, वो भगवान का नाम लेकर आप देते हैं, हम ईश्वर के उसको कर उसको हम ग्रहण करते हैं, फिर हमारा कर्तव्य हो जाता है. उसी निष्ठा से to the last funds are spent. So we have this, we are procuring oxygen concentrators, or we are procuring, this is the, not face mask, but for the protecting the whole body, PPEs. We are also providing COVID relief because many people lost their jobs. So in all possible, we are helping NGOs in India to inform and persuade the villagers that vaccination is in their interest. They must be ready for vaccination. So then our NGOs, after persuasion, put those villagers into bus, take them to the vaccination center, bring them back, but then don't forget about them. At least for 1 or 2 days, keep in contact, because there may be some temporary side effect. That is the nature of vaccines, whether in India or in US. So I think, if anything, we are proud of our partnership with the organizations in India. And once again, I wish to reassure our listeners that is, their money is very well spent. Let me stop.
That's very, very reassuring for everybody to hear, because there are many NGOs that do incredible work, but a lot of money is used up in administrative work. And that's one thing which you have taken care of very well, the maximum amount of money. I will shift to another part of it, another conversation, which is...
intervene as a part of continuation of your remarks. ITRF is having among the lowest possible overhead, which is below 5%. And it is rated by the Charity Navigator for 8 consecutive years at the 4 star out of 4 star. And believe it or not, the charities which got 4 star 8 years ago, only 6 out of 100 are able to retain that kind of credentials year after year after year. And your organization, IDRF, is among them, 6%. The other is a Guide Star. For the last 5 or 6 years, we are continuously getting platinum rating, which is the highest possible. And the third is great nonprofits. Any one of your listeners can visit the website of great nonprofits, and you'll find more than 120 independent reviews by donors, well-wishers, and so on. The quality of satisfaction they have derived with their association or donation to IDRF. So I think that was just inserting about.
No, that's wonderful. What I wanted to shift to your personal experience of doing this entire work. So you are doing a lot of, IDRF is doing a lot of work in women emancipation and empowerment and children part of it. Share with us your experience of one or two initiatives that you are very, very proud of. I'm 100% sure you are proud of all your work. But what I wanted to know that which is one of my favorite things that you are very proud of and the impact it had on the community or the people where you, through IDRF, you were able to extend the support.
Well, I think one example is our collaboration with Shiksha Bharti. That NGO is in Western UP, not too far from Delhi. The city is called Hapur. And we had visited, I'm sorry, I take back. More than 20 years ago, 3 persons representing that organization visited USA, and they had some contact with World Bank, and they came to know about me or IDRF. And since then, we have joined hands with them. The institution is renowned for girls' education, CBSE accredited. The school has about 1,500-1,600 girls, but that was not our focus at all. We were impressed by the quality, and we visited at least twice before taking a decision that this is the school we would like to associate with IDRF. But our interest was not the mainstream or poor local girls, but most deprived, most backward, what is called Vanvasi, forest dwellers. And those Vanvasis are living in Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Sikkim, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and so on and so forth. And they are two girls. They have almost no future. They have not heard about the modern education. So it is a triangular arrangement: IDRF, Shiksha Bharti, and Vidya Bharti. So the three organizations work together, and entire funding for the education of these girls, tribal girls, is provided by IDRF. So first of all, it took us 5 years to raise enough funds so that they could build a hostel, dorm, within the school premises. That dorm can accommodate about 100 girls. So far, in the maximum capacity has been about, actual utilization, about 88. So, but now because of COVID, that very adversely affected. But these girls, they come in when they are 4th or 5th grade. But once they not arrive at the school, once they leave their home, they are so poor that we take care of even the dress, so that dress which they need in taking the train travel, and the all train travel under high security, so that no one dares to touch these girls. They are absolutely secure. All those arrangements are made and funded by IDR. Of course, as I said, it is a triangular arrangement with Vidya Bharati, Shiksha Bharati, and IDRF. And then all their boarding, lodging is taken care by IDRF, all expenses. We have a very interesting program for that. We call endowment fund. So with the $10,000 of donation, one seat forever, not one girl. One girl will be there for maybe 8 years. That girl is graduated, then the next girl will come. So it is in perpetuity, $10,000, which is enough for meeting their boarding, lodging expenses, food, clothing, and all that. Then the school waives the tuition fee completely. And in addition, there are incidental expenses. Coaching, counseling we provide, then IDRF additionally from our other sources we pay, so that these girls, they are counseling at 8th grade, they are counseling at 11th grade, so that they know what type of high school, whether science, arts, commerce, and all that, they should go. And once they are going to finish high school, what kind of career they should have. So we encourage by their success. We have also now, many years ago, launched for those girls even the vocational training, skill development, and college education program. So this program is, of course, COVID has affected, but we are doing as best as we can. So this is one example. Other example I would give of our collaboration with Arpana Charitable Research Trust. This has a very interesting story. I hope your listeners have patience. Believe it or not, I'm repeating. We had a delegation of 3 persons from India. Once again, thanks to my association with World Bank, and everyone almost as somebody known at the World Bank, they came to know about IDRF and introduced us this Arpana organization. But the story is very simple and very unique. That organization got prize from World Health Organization, WHO. And this was about 25 to 22 years ago. How they got the prize? Because they started with a small hospital. So with the small primary hospital, only a small hospital, but they didn't build it from primary to secondary to tertiary or super specialty. But horizontally, they use the medical facilities to go to the villagers, to see how the villagers can be educated, how the villagers can be more self-reliant. So that's how we joined hands, and we started with, whether you may like it or not, a family planning program in 15, 14 villages, and we visited, and we during those 4 years at least twice, and we are eyewitness how they succeeded in a family planning. So there will be one batch of ladies only, and they will have Guriya, this doll and all that. They will play, dance, and go from village to village. Then separate team will be of males. They will do in their own way. And of course, our funds were essential to provide them the transport facilities and other associated expenses. And in 4 years' time, the natural birth rate of 33 prevalent in those 14, 15 villages fell down to 23, which was a remarkable accomplishment. At 21 per thousand, population stabilizes. So encouraged by that, then from 14, 15 villages, we expanded to 40, 50 villages. And so one is we expanded in terms of the number of villages, and another we broadened the scope. Then we started reaching women at large, and we started making of self-help groups so that we better inform women what are their duties and responsibilities in terms of their taking family and all that, and simultaneously then introduced little later microcredit, and by now, I must cut time, by now tens of thousands of women are self-employed. They are running their small businesses. And not only this, even the people with different abilities, which means apang, there are some serious disability, they are becoming self-employed, and whether it's bicycle repair and so on. So this is a marvelous example. Karnal is not too far from Delhi. I encourage your listeners who are, whenever they visit Delhi, the earlier example, Hapur is only 1 hour east of Delhi, and this is about 3 hours from west of Delhi, Karnal. So you have gained firsthand, you can visit these two. Any questions? I'll be more than happy to.
No, with the question and answer, we will do some other day. We'll invite people to ask questions. However, this is truly inspiring. Now I wanted to switch to another question, another inquiry. Nothing is always 100% successful. Not everything satisfied. There are times when we feel, I wish I had done it better, or I wish this particular program needed more support. And so I know that you have used the management principles of cooperation, collaboration, and mobilization to almost as an art form, in terms of creating conditions in which people collaborate, cooperate, and mobilize to do things. It doesn't happen by one person alone. So congratulations for that. But the last question of the day, given the time factor, is there something that left you unhappy for the way it ended, or it was not conceived well, or for which that you would, if you were to restart, what would you do now?
Yes, I think, and that is also very painful, but real. We started very well because the background was emergency, so all the other board members, which were 2 or 3 other, they had all RSS background. But we had a very fierce battle within the board because one renowned Hindu-minded, I cannot obviously mention name, tried to I would not say cheat, but this is all within family. So IDRF had received a promissory note of a very substantial amount. That means donation promised to pay. Everything was done legally according to the American laws. But after some years, though initially entire amount was for at IDRF discretion, after some years he mentioned that I should donate, IDRF should give that money to Hindu University of America. And I immediately, being a proud Hindu, I gave a personal $5,000 check in favor of Hindu University of America. But I said, IDRF is not Hindu. It is India Development and Relief Fund, and its charter does not allow. And that's where IDRF is split from RSS, is no more a part of RSS. For me, Dharma and Satya is supreme, not in any ideology. And that is my experience, which extreme sadness. In fact, I'm not a medical doctor, but I was under intense pressure, mental agony. I was on nebulizer, and I'm very grateful to my personal doctor, Dr. Sudhir Saxena, who rescued me through bronchial serious attack. But I was going through intense pain, and perhaps my immune system was compromised when in 2010 my surgery was done. I had the sheer bad luck of three ophthalmic surgeons. They were just, I don't want to use any abusive word, except saying I had bad luck. I had one doctor in emergency who was, again, bad luck, who misdiagnosed that I had a stomach flu, but that fierce vomiting had nothing to do with stomach. It was all because of eye infection. In that process of misdiagnosis by three ophthalmologists and one ER doctor, I am what I am today. My life has completely changed. I miss very much my annual trip to India. I can't see all 24 hours and 365 days. It is like I say, I'm confined to the four walls of our home. It is up to me to consider it as a prison or paradise. So, especially during the COVID, I consider this to be paradise for me, because thanks to IDRF team, work is going on continuously with full intensity, and I am immensely grateful to the Supreme Almighty they bestowed me with these blessings that IDRF is continuing.
Thank you, Dr. Vinod Prakashji. Thank you very much for being such an inspiration. And what a story, what a real life scenario. And today I'm definitely urging all the listeners. Majority of us are keyboard warriors, WhatsApp warriors. We comment on tweets and Facebooks and whatever. We lament about the problem. We talk about issues. We give armchair advice to people, what they should do. I don't use the word should in my life. Try not using the word should in your life and see the qualitative change it will make in your life. I want to urge all of you. Dr. Vinod Prakashji is not solving India's problems by telling government what to do. He is doing what he believes, what he must. And that's what is the inspiration to all of us. Instead of just being keyboard warriors, find a cause. If you can't find a cause, associate yourself with a cause. Contribute to a cause. Become part of it. Then only you play the game. Sitting by the sidelines and giving special commentaries or expert advice doesn't matter. What matters is what you do, what we do. And that's what I want everybody to learn from the experience and the story of Mr. Vinod Prakash, Dr. Vinod Prakash. And I'm 100% sure that Dr. Vinod Prakash is one of several such examples where people are committing their life to making a difference. This is an example when somebody has making a difference, has made a difference, and will continue to make a difference. So with these words, have a great weekend. Thank you, Dr. Vinod Prakash ji, for joining me on this program today. And I just wanted you to know that you are welcome more than again. And let's share more about the story, because your story is an inspiring story. And thank you. I take this opportunity also to thank your volunteers. Vandana ji is hiding in the corner somewhere, but Vandana ji, thank you so much for putting this whole conversation together, and to your entire team. Continue your good work.
Thank you.
We will meet again.
Thank you. Namaskar. Pranam.
Namaskar.